Hey folks, John Ferguson Smart here. Here are 3 quick tips to hopefully try and make your test automation efforts a little bit easier. The first tip is learn to listen to your application. Now what I mean by that is that very often we come across an application and we see that it's a bit hard to test. The locators aren't very clean, there aren't IDs, the structure on the web page is quite complicated, it uses complicated UI components. So what we do is we look for tools. We look for we might use sophisticated AI or record and replay tools, or we might make our test code much more complicated, much more sophisticated. We might use really complicated XPath or CSS locators to identify elements on a page and so forth. And things get very hard and things get very brittle. The problem with that approach is we're not listening to the application. What the application is telling you there is that I'm not testable. The application is saying that if you can't test the application easily, it's not your fault that you're a bad tester. It's the fault of the application, that the application has not been designed for testability. And if you can think of ways to make your application more testable, or think of ways to work around the bit of the application that you're testing, maybe calling an API, maybe looking at the back end rather than going through the UI every time, then that can help you make your life a lot easier. And that leads to my second point. You don't have to do it all yourself. You don't have to automate every layer of the test pyramid yourself. You don't have to do everything. You can very well talk to the developers, talk to other folk on the team, and see what bits they can automate, or what would make sense for them to automate, and what would make sense to collaborate on. So maybe developers can very perfectly well validate a bit of business logic or workflow logic or transformation or whatever through unit tests or through integration tests at their level that you don't have to do with an acceptance test. Or maybe you can wrap an acceptance test in unit test working with the developers. There are lots of ways, if you can get collaboration going, to make your life a lot easier. The third tip is you really don't want to forget about learning. This is a continuous learning journey that we're on. We're always needing to look for more stuff, to learn new stuff. And that's a continuous thing. I mean, I'm still learning after 30, 40 years. It's a long process. So don't get discouraged if you don't know everything straight away. That's cool. We're learning things all the time. And that's absolutely fine. So keep up the learning. Try to listen to your tests to know what your tests are telling you. Listen to your application to know what your application is telling you, and work with your developers a little bit more closely so that you don't have to do everything. That's all for today, folks. Thanks for listening.